The clock on the wall showed 9:30 p.m. when Lisa finished wiping down the last table in the dining room. Her feet ached from another 12-hour shift at Romano's restaurant, but she couldn't complain. The tips from tonight would help pay for her little brother's physical therapy sessions this week. Romano's was one of those fancy places where people came to celebrate big deals and special occasions. The kind of restaurant where a single meal cost more than Lisa made in 3 days of waitressing. She had been working there for almost 4 years now, ever since she dropped out of college to take care of Tommy after their parents died in that car accident. The evening had been busy, filled with business dinners and anniversary celebrations. Lisa was looking forward to going home when she heard the front door chime. Her heart sank a little. Late customers usually meant she wouldn't get home until after midnight. A group of 5 men in expensive suits walked in, led by a tall man with silver hair and a confident stride. Lisa recognized him immediately. Everyone in the city knew David Richardson, the tech billionaire who owned half the companies downtown. He was known for 2 things: making incredible amounts of money and treating people like they were beneath him. "Good evening, gentlemen," called out Mr. Romano, the restaurant owner, practically running from behind the bar to greet them. "Mr. Richardson, such an honor to have you here tonight." Richardson barely glanced at him. "We have the private dining room reserved. I trust everything is ready?" Of course," Mr. Romano said, gesturing toward the elegant back room with its crystal chandelier and mahogany furniture. "Lisa will take excellent care of you tonight. She's our best server." Lisa forced a smile and gathered her order pad. She had heard stories about Richardson from other servers around the city. He was demanding, never satisfied, and had a habit of making people feel small just because he could. The private dining room was beautiful, with paintings on the walls and soft lighting that made everything look warm and inviting. In the corner sat a gorgeous black grand piano that had been there since the restaurant opened 15 years ago. It was mostly for decoration now, since their regular piano player had quit 3 months ago after Richardson had humiliated him during a previous visit. "Good evening," Lisa said politely as the men settled into their chairs. "Congratulations on your business success. I heard about the big deal you closed today." Richardson looked up at her with cold eyes. "Just bring us the wine list and don't waste our time with small talk." His business partners shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Lisa had learned long ago not to take rudeness personally, especially from wealthy customers who thought money gave them the right to treat others poorly. She brought them their wine, took their dinner orders, and tried to stay invisible while they talked loudly about their latest business conquest. Richardson had apparently bought out a smaller company that morning, something that would make him even richer while putting hundreds of people out of work. As the evening wore on, Richardson became louder and more demanding. He sent back his steak twice, complained about the temperature in the room, and snapped his fingers at Lisa every time he wanted something. His business partners seemed embarrassed by his behavior, but none of them said anything. After dessert, and several expensive bottles of wine, Richardson suddenly stood up and walked over to the piano. He ran his hand along the polished surface and turned back to his guests. "You know what this evening is missing?" he announced, his words slightly slurred from the wine. "Music. How can we properly celebrate without music?" One of his partners cleared his throat nervously. "David, maybe we should head to that jazz club downtown if you want music." Richardson waved his hand dismissively. "Nonsense. We have a perfectly good piano right here." He turned to Lisa, who was clearing the dessert plates. "You, girl, play something for us." Lisa froze, a plate halfway to the serving tray. "I'm sorry, sir, but I'm just a waitress. We don't currently have a piano player on staff." Richardson's face darkened. "Don't tell me what you can't do. I'm sure someone here knows how to play this thing." He looked around the room impatiently. What kind of restaurant has a piano they can't use? Mr. Romano appeared in the doorway, having heard the commotion. "Mr. Richardson, I sincerely apologize. Our regular pianist left a few months ago and we haven't found a replacement yet. Perhaps I could arrange for someone to come in tomorrow evening." "Tomorrow?" Richardson's voice rose. "We're celebrating tonight, not tomorrow. This is unacceptable." He pointed directly at Lisa. "She's been serving us all evening. The least she can do is provide some entertainment." Lisa's hands began to shake slightly. "Sir, I really don't play piano. I wouldn't want to ruin your celebration." Richardson pulled out his wallet and threw 5 $100 bills on the table. $500. Just play something. Anything. How hard can it be? The room fell silent. Lisa stared at the money on the table. $500 was more than she usually made in 2 weeks. It would cover Tommy's therapy sessions for the next month and still leave enough for groceries. "David, maybe we should just leave the girl alone," one of his partners suggested quietly. Richardson whirled around to face him. "Are you telling me how to spend my money, Jim? I want music and I'm willing to pay for it. What's the problem?" Mr. Romano looked at Lisa with pleading eyes. She knew he was thinking about the restaurant's reputation, about how Richardson could destroy their business with one bad review or by simply telling his wealthy friends to avoid the place. Lisa felt every eye in the room on her. The other diners had noticed the commotion and were starting to stare. She thought about Tommy waiting at home, probably doing his homework at the kitchen table, trusting her to keep paying for the treatments that were helping him walk normally. Again, I suppose I could try something simple," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Richardson clapped his hands together. "Excellent. See how easy that was?" He gestured grandly toward the piano. "Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be entertained by our talented waitress." Lisa walked slowly toward the piano, her legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. She hadn't touched piano keys in over 5 years, not since they had to sell their family piano to pay for Tommy's first surgery. She sat down on the bench, her hands trembling as she lifted the keyboard cover. The keys seemed to mock her, black and white in perfect order, waiting for fingers that had once known them as well as her own heartbeat. She could feel Richardson's impatient stare burning into her back, could hear whispers from the other tables as word spread through the restaurant that something unusual was happening. Lisa closed her eyes and tried to remember what it felt like, to love music instead of fear it. Somewhere in the distance, she could almost hear her mother's voice encouraging her to play, just like she had done every day after school when Lisa was young, and the world was full of possibilities instead of responsibilities. She placed her fingers on the keys and took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. Lisa's hands hovered over the piano keys like butterflies afraid to land. The restaurant had grown quieter, as if everyone was holding their breath waiting to see what would happen next. She could feel dozens of eyes watching her from behind, and the weight of their expectations pressed down on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. Her mind raced back to the last time she had sat at a piano. It was 5 years ago, the day before they sold their old upright piano to help pay for Tommy's first surgery. She had played for hours that night, trying to memorize the feeling of the keys under her fingers, knowing it might be the last time, for a very long time. "Well?" Richardson's voice cut through her memories like a knife. "We don't have all night." Lisa's fingers trembled as she finally touched the keys. They felt cold and unfamiliar, nothing like the warm, worn keys of her childhood piano that had known her touch since she was 7 years old. She pressed down on middle C, and the single note rang out clear and pure in the silent room. The sound hit her like a wave of emotion she wasn't prepared for. For just a moment, she was 12 years old again, sitting next to her mother on the piano bench, learning to play for Elise for the first time. Her mother's patient voice echoed in her memory. "Don't worry about making mistakes, sweetheart. The piano forgives everything if you play with your heart." But those days were gone now, buried under years of double shifts and hospital bills and sleepless nights worrying about Tommy. Lisa tried to remember something simple, something safe, that wouldn't embarrass her too much. Her mind went blank. "This is ridiculous," Richardson muttered to his friends loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm paying $500 for this amateur hour." The cruel words stung, but they also sparked something in Lisa that had been sleeping for too long. She thought about all the times people had looked down on her because she was just a waitress. All the times she had bitten her tongue when customers treated her like she was invisible or stupid. All the dreams she had given up without anyone ever asking if that's what she really wanted. Her fingers found their way to the opening notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. It was the piece she had played at her high school graduation, Back when she thought she would go to music school and become a concert pianist. Back when the future stretched out before her like an open road instead of a narrow tunnel. The first few measures came out rough and hesitant. Her technique was rusty, her timing uncertain. She could hear Richardson sighing impatiently behind her. But as she continued to play, something magical began to happen. Her muscle memory started to wake up, like a sleeping giant, stretching after a long winter. Her fingers began to remember their old paths across the keys. The melody started to flow, more smoothly, more confidently. The beautiful haunting notes of Chopin filled the room, carrying with them all the longing and sadness Lisa had kept locked inside for so many years. As she played, the years seemed to fall away. She wasn't a tired waitress anymore, worried about bills and responsibilities. She was just Lisa, the girl who used to lose herself in music for hours at a time, who dreamed of playing in concert halls around the world, who believed that music could heal any hurt and solve any problem. The restaurant around her faded away. She couldn't hear Richardson's complaints or the clinking of dishes from the kitchen. There was only the piano and the music flowing through her like water through a riverbed that had been dry for too long. Without conscious thought, she began to add her own touches to Chopin's masterpiece. A small change in rhythm here, a delicate ornament there. The classical structure remained, but she was making it her own, the way she used to do when she practiced alone in her bedroom, creating variations that no one else would ever hear. The nocturne was supposed to be gentle and dreamy, but Lisa's version carried an undercurrent of something deeper, all the pain of losing her parents, all the exhaustion of working multiple jobs, all the heartbreak of watching her little brother struggle with his disability. It all poured out through her fingers and into the music. She had almost forgotten that anyone else was in the room when she heard it. Or rather, when she noticed the absence of it. The constant background noise of the restaurant, conversations, footsteps, the distant sounds of the kitchen, had stopped completely. Lisa opened her eyes and realized that not only had Richardson stopped complaining, but he was staring at her with an expression she had never seen on his face before. His usual arrogant sneer had been replaced by something that looked almost like wonder. She glanced around the room and saw that other diners had left their own tables and gathered near the private dining room to listen. Waiters and busboys stood, frozen in the doorways, holding their trays and forgetting their duties. Even Mr. Romano stood with his mouth slightly open, as if he was seeing her for the first time. The realization that she had an audience again made Lisa's confidence waver for a moment. But the music was stronger than her fear now. Instead of stopping, she transitioned seamlessly into something she had never played before, an improvisation that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her soul. It started as a variation on the Chopin theme, but gradually became something entirely new. Classical technique blended with the blues progressions she had picked up from listening to jazz during her breaks at the restaurant. The formal structure of the nocturne gave way to something more personal, more raw, more real. This wasn't music from a textbook or a lesson plan. This was her story being told without words. The melody spoke of loss and hope, of dreams deferred but not destroyed. It talked about the weight of responsibility and the strength it takes to keep going when everything falls apart. It sang about love, the kind of fierce, protective love that makes a teenager give up her future to take care of her little brother. As the improvisation reached its climax, Lisa felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Pure joy. The simple, uncomplicated happiness that comes from doing the thing you were born to do. The thing that makes you feel most like yourself. Her fingers danced across the keys with growing confidence, weaving melodies that seemed to surprise even her. She had forgotten how good it felt to create something beautiful, to take the chaos and pain of life and transform it into something meaningful. The music began to soften, winding down like a gentle rainfall after a storm. Lisa played the final notes with a tenderness that seemed to embrace everyone in the room, forgiving them for not seeing her clearly before this moment, forgiving herself for hiding her light under a bushel for so long. As the last note faded into silence, Lisa sat perfectly still, her hands resting on the keys. The room remained quiet for what felt like an eternity. Then, Somewhere in the back, someone began to clap. Others joined in, and within seconds, the entire restaurant erupted in thunderous applause. Lisa turned around slowly, hardly believing what she was seeing. People were on their feet, some wiping tears from their eyes, others smiling at her like she had just given them the most precious gift imaginable. And there in the front row of faces, looking more shocked than anyone else, stood David Richardson, his hands clapping along with everyone else's. The applause seemed to go on forever. Lisa sat frozen at the piano bench, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. She had never experienced anything like this before, not even back in high school when she won the state music competition. This felt different, more real somehow. She looked out at the crowd of faces staring back at her with amazement and something that looked like genuine respect. These were the same people who had barely noticed her all evening, who saw her as nothing more than someone to bring them their food and refill their water glasses. Now they were looking at her like she was someone special. Richardson was still clapping, but his expression had completely changed. The arrogant smirk was gone, replaced by something Lisa had never expected to see on his face. Humility. He looked almost confused, as if he couldn't quite believe what had just happened. That was, he started to say, then stopped and shook his head. Where did you learn to play like that? Lisa's throat felt dry. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not like this. I studied piano when I was younger, she said quietly, her voice barely carrying over the murmur of conversation starting up around the room. Studied? Richardson stepped closer, his business partners forgotten behind him. That wasn't just studying. That was... He paused, searching for the right words. That was professional level playing. Where did you go to school? Lisa felt her cheeks burning red. She didn't want to talk about this, didn't want to explain about the scholarship she had turned down and the dreams she had buried. I didn't finish my music education, she said, hoping he would drop the subject. But Richardson wasn't the type to let things go. What do you mean you didn't finish? You had to have had serious training to play like that. Nobody just picks that up as a hobby. The crowd was still gathered around them, listening to every word. Lisa could see Mr. Romano hovering nearby, probably worried about what all this attention might mean for his restaurant. Some people were holding up their phones, recording everything that was happening. I got accepted to Juilliard, Lisa said, finally the words coming out in a rush. Full scholarship. But my parents died in a car accident right after my high school graduation. My little brother was only 12, and he was hurt badly in the crash. He needed surgery, physical therapy, someone to take care of him. She looked down at her hands, still resting on the piano keys. So I turned down the scholarship and got a job instead. The room went completely quiet again. Even the kitchen staff had stopped what they were doing to listen. Lisa immediately regretted saying so much. She didn't want people's pity. She had made her choice and she had never regretted it. Tommy was worth more than any career could ever be. Richardson stared at her for a long moment. Juilliard, he repeated slowly. You turned down Juilliard. My brother needed me, Lisa said simply. Family comes first. Something shifted in Richardson's expression. For just a moment, he looked almost vulnerable, like someone had reminded him of something he had forgotten long ago. How long ago was this? He asked. 5 years, Lisa said. Tommy's doing much better now. The physical therapy has helped a lot. He can walk normally most days, and he's doing great in school. One of the other diners, an elderly woman with kind eyes, stepped forward. Honey, I haven't heard playing like that since I saw Vladimir Horowitz perform at Carnegie Hall 30 years ago. You have a gift that shouldn't be wasted. Lisa felt tears starting to well up in her eyes. I don't waste it, she said defensively. I play for Tommy sometimes when he's having a bad day with his leg. Music helps him feel better. That's beautiful, dear, the woman said gently. But the world deserves to hear what you can do. Richardson was pacing now, his mind clearly working through something. You said you got the scholarship 5 years ago. Do you know if it would still be available? Do music schools have policies about deferred admission? Lisa shook her head. It doesn't matter. I can't afford to go to school now even if they would take me. I have to work. Tommy still has medical expenses and we have rent and groceries and… She trailed off, realizing she was sharing too much with a room full of strangers. What if money wasn't an issue? Richardson asked suddenly. Lisa looked at him suspiciously. She had learned not to trust wealthy people who made big promises. Money is always an issue for people like me, she said. Richardson pulled out his phone and started typing rapidly. What's your brother's full name and which hospital handles his care? Why do you want to know that? Lisa asked, taking a step back from the piano. Because I'm going to take care of it, Richardson said, still typing. All of it. His medical bills, your living expenses, everything. The room buzzed with excited whispers, but Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. I don't understand. Why would you do that? Richardson looked up from his phone, and for the first time all evening his expression was completely sincere. Because 30 years ago I was a lot like you. I had talent, real musical talent. I wrote songs, played guitar, dreamed of making albums that would change the world. He laughed bitterly. My father told me music was a waste of time, that I needed to focus on business if I wanted to be successful. So I gave it up. Sold my guitars, threw away my songs, and spent the next 3 decades making money instead of music. He gestured toward his business partners. I'm worth more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but I haven't created anything beautiful in 30 years. I haven't felt the way I felt listening to you play since I was 22 years old and thought I was going to be the next Bob Dylan. Lisa stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. You want to help me because you used to write songs? I want to help you because you remind me of what I gave up, Richardson said. And because what you just did, that improvisation, the way you took Chopin and made it your own, that's not just talent. That's genius. And genius shouldn't be wasted serving tables no matter how noble your reasons are. One of his business partners stepped forward. David, are you sure about this? You don't even know this girl. Richardson turned to face him with an intensity that made the man take a step back. I know she turned down Juilliard to take care of her brother. I know she's worked here for 4 years without ever mentioning that she's one of the most talented musicians I've ever heard. I know she just played something that made me remember why I fell in love with music in the first place. He looked back at Lisa. That's enough for me. Lisa felt dizzy. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. I don't need charity, she said, her pride flaring up. I've been taking care of my family just fine on my own. This isn't charity, Richardson said firmly. This is an investment. In you, in your talent, in the music you haven't written yet. I want you to succeed not because I feel sorry for you, but because the world needs what you have to offer. He handed her a business card. My personal number is on there. I want you to think about it tonight. Talk to your brother. Tomorrow, if you're willing, I'd like to make you an offer that could change everything. Lisa took the card with shaking hands. Richardson's name was printed in simple black letters, along with a phone number she never imagined she would have. What kind of offer? She asked quietly. Richardson smiled, and for the first time all evening it looked genuine. The kind that gives you back your dreams without asking you to give up your family. Lisa couldn't sleep that night. She kept staring at Richardson's business card on her nightstand, the white rectangle seeming to glow in the darkness of her small bedroom. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the echo of applause and felt the smooth piano keys under her fingertips again. Tommy was already eating cereal at their tiny kitchen table when she shuffled out in her bathrobe the next morning. At 17, he had grown tall and lean, though he still walked with a slight limp on days when the weather was bad. He looked up from his homework with concern when he saw her face. You look like you didn't sleep at all, he said, pushing his math book aside. Rough night at work? Lisa poured herself coffee and sat down across from him. She'd been trying to figure out how to tell him about what happened, or even if she should tell him. Tommy had always felt guilty about the sacrifices she had made for him, even though she had never wanted him to feel that way. Something strange happened last night. she said finally. Really strange. Tommy raised an eyebrow. Strange how? Did Mr. Romano finally fire that creepy cook who keeps hitting on all the waitresses? Despite everything, Lisa smiled. Tommy always knew how to make her laugh. No, nothing like that. I played piano in front of a lot of people. Tommy's spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. You played piano? Like, actually played? You haven't touched a piano in years. I know. This rich businessman basically forced me to play for his dinner party, and I was so nervous I thought I might pass out. But then, she trailed off, not sure how to explain what had happened to her at the piano. But then you remembered why you used to love it so much, Tommy said quietly. Lisa looked at him in surprise. Sometimes she forgot how perceptive her little brother could be. How did you know that? Tommy shrugged. I remember how you used to look when you played our old piano, like nothing else in the world mattered. I always felt bad that we had to sell it. Tommy, we've talked about this. That piano paid for your surgery. It was the right choice. Maybe, Tommy said, but he didn't look convinced. So what was strange about playing last night? Did you mess up really badly or something? Lisa pulled Richardson's business card out of her pocket and set it on the table between them. The man who made me play, he wants to help me go back to school, music school. Tommy picked up the card and his eyes widened. David Richardson? The David Richardson who owns like half the companies in the city? You know who he is? Lisa, everybody knows who he is. He's one of the richest people in the country. Tommy turned the card over in his hands. What kind of help are we talking about? Lisa took a deep breath. He wants to pay for my medical bills, all of them, and he wants to pay for me to go to music school, maybe even try to get back into a program like Juilliard. Tommy went very still. He wants to pay my medical bills? That's what he said. I don't know if he was serious, or if he was just caught up in the moment or what. Rich people say a lot of things they don't mean. Tommy was quiet for a long time, staring down at the business card. When he finally looked up, his eyes were bright with something that looked like hope mixed with fear. Lisa, what if he means it? What if this is real? I don't know, Lisa said honestly. It seems too good to be true. And even if he is serious, I'm not sure I could accept that kind of help from a stranger. Why not? Tommy asked, and there was an edge to his voice that Lisa had never heard before. Because of your pride? Lisa felt stung. It's not about pride, Tommy. It's about taking care of our family. That's my responsibility. Tommy slammed, his hand down on the table, making both their coffee cups jump. No, it's not. It was never supposed to be your responsibility. Lisa stared at him in shock. Tommy never raised his voice, never got angry about anything. You were 18 years old when Mom and Dad died, Tommy continued, his voice shaking. 18. You should have gone to college, should have become a famous pianist, should have had a normal life. Instead, you've been working 2 jobs for 5 years to take care of me, and I hate it. Tommy, don't say that. I chose to take care of you because I love you. I know you love me, Tommy said, tears starting to roll down his cheeks. But I also know you cry sometimes when you think I'm asleep. I know you look at other people our age who are in college or starting careers and wonder what your life would have been like. I know you miss playing piano so much it hurts. Lisa felt her own tears starting. That doesn't matter. You're my family. You're all I have left. And you're all I have left too, Tommy said fiercely. Which is why I want you to be happy. Really, happy. Not just pretending to be okay all the time. They sat in silence for a few minutes, both of them crying quietly. Finally, Tommy reached across the table and took Lisa's hand. I'm getting better, he said softly. The doctors say I might not need physical therapy much longer. I'm almost 18 and I've already been accepted to 3 colleges with academic scholarships. I don't need you to take care of me anymore. But what if something happens? What if you need surgery again or... Then we'll figure it out, Tommy interrupted. But Lisa, you can't spend your whole life waiting for bad things that might never happen. Mom and Dad wouldn't have wanted that for you. Lisa knew he was right, but the fear was still there. For 5 years, taking care of Tommy had been her whole world. She didn't know who she was without that responsibility. "What if I call him and he's changed his mind?" she asked. "What if it was all just some rich guy feeling guilty for a few minutes?" Tommy picked up her phone from the table and held it out to her. "Then at least you'll know." "But what if he hasn't changed his mind? What if this is the chance you've been waiting for your whole life?" Lisa took the phone with shaking hands. She dialed Richardson's number before she could lose her nerve. He answered on the second ring. "This is David Richardson." "Mr. Richardson, this is Lisa." "From the restaurant last night?" "Lisa, I was hoping you'd call. Have you thought about my offer?" "I've thought about it all night," Lisa said honestly. "But I need to know exactly what you're proposing. I can't make a decision based on vague promises." Richardson's laugh sounded genuinely pleased. "Smart girl. Can you meet me at my office this afternoon? Say, 2 o'clock? I have some papers I'd like you to look at, and I think it would be better to discuss this in person." Lisa looked at Tommy, who was nodding encouragingly. "I work the lunch shift today, but I could be there by 2. "Perfect. My assistant will have all the details ready for you. And Lisa, bring your brother with you. This concerns him too." After she hung up, Lisa sat staring at her phone for a long moment. "So?" Tommy asked impatiently. Lisa looked at her. "Brother, this amazing young man who had been through so much and somehow managed to stay hopeful and kind. I guess we're about to find out if dreams really do come true." Tommy grinned. And for the first time in years, Lisa let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they did. The Richardson Industries building towered 40 stories above the city, all glass and steel reaching toward the clouds. Lisa and Tommy stood on the sidewalk looking up at it, both of them feeling very small and out of place. "I can't believe we're actually doing this," Lisa whispered, clutching the folder of documents Tommy had insisted she bring. Things like Tommy's medical records and her old report cards from high school. "Come on," Tommy said, taking her arm. "We've come this far." The lobby was bigger than their entire apartment, with marble floors that echoed their footsteps, and a ceiling so high Lisa had to crane her neck to see it. A receptionist in an expensive suit directed them to the express elevator that would take them to the executive floor. As they rode up, Lisa watched the numbers climb higher and higher. 35, 36, 37. Her stomach felt like it was somewhere around the 20th floor. "What if this is all some kind of joke?" she asked Tommy. "What if he gets us up there and laughs at us for thinking someone like him would really help people like us?" Tommy squeezed her hand. "Then we'll walk out with our heads held high, knowing we were brave enough to try." The elevator dinged softly as they reached the 40th floor. The doors opened to reveal a waiting area that looked more like a luxury hotel lobby than an office. Soft music played in the background and fresh flowers sat on every table. "Ms. Lisa?" A woman in her 30s approached them with a warm smile. "I'm Janet, Mr. Richardson's assistant. He's waiting for you in his office." She led them down a hallway, lined with windows that offered breathtaking views of the city below. Lisa could see Romano's restaurant from up here, looking like a tiny dollhouse in the distance. Richardson's office was larger than most people's houses. One entire wall was made of windows, and the others were covered with awards, photographs, and what looked like original artwork. But what caught Lisa's attention immediately was the beautiful grand piano sitting in the corner, its black surface gleaming under the afternoon sun. Richardson stood up from behind his enormous desk as they entered. He looked different than he had at the restaurant, less intimidating somehow, more human. He was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of his expensive suit, and his silver hair was slightly messed up as if he'd been running his hands through it. "Lisa, Tommy, thank you for coming," he said, walking around the desk to greet them. "Please sit down. Can I get you anything? Coffee, water, soda?" They settled into comfortable chairs arranged around a small table near the window. Richardson sat across from them, and Lisa noticed that his hands were shaking slightly. He seemed almost as nervous as she was. "I want to start by apologizing," he said, "for how I behaved at the restaurant. I was showing off for my business associates, trying to prove how important I was, and I treated you badly. That's not the kind of person I want to be." Lisa was surprised by his honesty. "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot." Richardson nodded and picked up a thick folder from the table. "I've spent the last 24 hours making some phone calls and putting together a proposal for you. But before we get into the details, I want you to understand something. This isn't charity, and it's not because I feel guilty. This is an investment in talent that I believe could change the world." He opened the folder and pulled out several documents. First, Tommy's medical expenses. I've spoken with his doctors and the hospital billing department. All of his past bills have been paid in full as of this morning. All future treatments, physical therapy sessions, and any additional medical needs he might have will be covered by a medical trust I've set up in his name. Tommy gasped and grabbed Lisa's hand. She felt dizzy, unable to believe what she was hearing. "That's not all," Richardson continued. "I've been in touch with several prestigious music schools, including Juilliard. While your original scholarship has expired, they're very interested in hearing you audition again. I'm prepared to cover all tuition, living expenses, and any other costs related to your education." Lisa's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Why would you do this?" Richardson was quiet for a moment, staring out the window at the city below. "Because 30 years ago I made the biggest mistake of my life. I had talent, real musical talent, and I threw it away because I thought money was more important than art. I've spent 3 decades trying to fill that hole in my soul with business deals and acquisitions, but nothing has ever worked." He turned back to them, and Lisa could see tears in his eyes. "Last night when you played that improvisation, I felt something I haven't felt since I was young. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy in the face of something beautiful. You reminded me what I gave up, and I don't want you to make the same mistake I did." Tommy spoke up for the first time since they'd arrived. "What do you get out of this? There has to be something you want in return." Richardson smiled, and it was the same genuine smile Lisa had seen briefly at the restaurant. "Smart kid. You're right, there is something I want." He looked directly at Lisa. "I want you to promise me that you'll use this opportunity, that you won't give up on your music again no matter what challenges you face. And someday when you're performing at Carnegie Hall or composing symphonies that move people to tears, I want you to remember that taking help from others isn't a sign of weakness. It's how we lift each other up." Lisa felt tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it," Richardson said gently. "Take the documents home, read through everything, talk to each other. This is a big decision, and I don't want you to feel pressured." Tommy looked at his sister with eyes full of hope. "Lisa, this is everything you ever dreamed of." "But what about you?" Lisa asked. "What about taking care of you?" Tommy laughed, and it was a sound full of love and exasperation. "I'm going to college next year, remember? I've been taking care of myself for months now. It's time for you to take care of your dreams." Richardson stood up and walked over to the piano in the corner. "Would you play something for me? Just a few notes. I want to hear that magic again." Lisa looked at Tommy, who nodded encouragingly. She walked over to the piano and sat down, her fingers finding the keys like they were greeting old friends. Without thinking about it, she began to play a simple melody. Not Chopin this time, but something of her own creation. Something that spoke of gratitude and hope, and the scary, wonderful feeling of standing at the beginning of a new life. So, the last notes faded away. Richardson wiped his eyes unashamedly. "That," he said, "is why I believe in you." 6 months later, Lisa stood backstage at her first recital as a returning student at the New England Conservatory. She could hear the audience taking their seats, could feel the familiar flutter of nervous excitement in her stomach. Tommy was out there somewhere, along with Mr. Romano and several of her old co-workers from the restaurant. And in the front row, she knew, sat David Richardson, the man who had given her back her dreams and taught her that sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the courage to accept help when it's offered with love. As she walked onto the stage and took her place at the grand piano, Lisa smiled at the faces looking back at her with anticipation. She placed her hands on the keys and began to play, her heart full of gratitude for the unexpected journey that had brought her home to the music she was born to create.